Last Looks crew. Well, the question is, why has it taken me and my guest so long to do a solo episode chatting about her incredible career journey? Who knows? Not me, but we finally did it. And as it so happens, I am currently in my home country on a job with her now. What a lucky duck I am. Her name is Heba Thorisdottir, and I know you know her work because she has done some incredibly cool shit. If you've seen a Quentin Tarantino film, then Heba probably designed the makeup. If you've seen any Marvel films, then Heba very well may have worked on them. Not to mention, you ever wonder why Paul Rudd doesn't age? Well, I have a theory, and Heba is the main character in that theory. But enough of me fangirling over my fabulous friend. Let's get into this episode. My name is Jaime Leigh, a hairstylist working in film, and this is the Last Looks podcast, a show where I catch up with hero makeup artists working in the film industry around the world. And today, on this episode, I'm chatting with makeup artist Heba Thorisdottir. On with the show.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
John Blake's Wigs and Facial Hair has been providing the highest quality wigs and facial hair to the film, television, and live theater industries for 15 years. Our human hair wigs are low density and hand-tied on Swiss lace to give the most realistic and natural appearance that is undetectable in HD and 4K content. This small, family-owned company has grown to fill a vital role to artists across the globe. We provide an unparalleled customer service experience that is rare in today's retail market. Our facial hair pieces come in 17 different styles and colors that are designed to precisely mimic natural growth and coloring patterns. They are made from blending human and yak hair in order to create the most realistic texture and appearance of men's facial hair growth. We are grateful to be celebrating 15 years of being an industry leader and a vital part of your artistry.
And now, our feature presentation.
Pictures up.
Last looks. Rolling.
And action.
Welcome to the Last Looks podcast, Heba.
Thank you, Jaime Leigh.
Okay, so this is where our story begins. I want you to finish this sentence for me, okay?
Okay.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Heba, and when she grew up, she wanted to be...
I think I wanted to be, there was a time I wanted to be an architect.
Uh-huh.
And then I realized there's so much math, which is not my strong side. So I axed that really fast. And then I wanted to become a photographer.
Okay.
And I had that for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine was getting into photography school making her portfolio to apply for a school in France. And I was modeling for her with her sister, the girlfriends were doing it. And I guess I was the best one at makeup. So she kept asking me to do the other girls' makeup.
Ah.
In the end, she was like, Heba, why don't you go and do makeup and I do photography and then we can work together.
That's awesome.
So that's what got me thinking, that's maybe something that could be fun.
And so just to go back for a little second, what made you think of getting into architecture?
I don't know. I just always loved buildings.
Right.
I'm more of it's like if you take me for a drive and you start driving into the countryside, I'm just I keep looking back okay, we're getting really far from all these stores over there. And,
you want to be looking at buildings, not trees.
Yes, I'm a lot more into buildings than trees and hills and greenery. I mean, I love gardening and stuff, but, I like living in a city.
Yeah.
And looking at buildings.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some pretty amazing structures out there, but I get the whole math thing. I think that would have put me off too, actually, to be honest.
Right?
Yeah. But so how old were you when that was happening? Like the girlfriend taking photos and you doing makeup and all that kind of stuff. How old were you at that point?
I think I was 16, 17.
Yeah. So it's a good time to figure out kind of a possible direction. right?
Yes, and I also I like costume design as well, and I had worked a little bit in the theater. And when you're in school in Iceland, where I'm from, they have like a work day or it's actually a work week, so you can pick a company or whatever you would think you would want to do when you grow up. And I picked the theater, and my cousin was actually over the makeup department there. So I loved like hanging out in her room and watching what they were doing. And I just never thought like that I was artistic, because when I was in art class in school, I could never like draw anything or, paint or, I didn't really have understanding for like a canvas.
Yeah.
And so I never thought like, because I couldn't draw what they wanted me to draw, I just didn't think I was artistic or could do makeup,
Yeah.
But I would like go to the theater, watch her. And that was kind of, for me, the highlight of the week was seeing the makeup and the wigs and all that stuff. I did think about going into hair for a little while, and that was really hard to study in Iceland because it's like a 4-year training, school and training program.
Yeah.
And you would have to have a contract into a salon as a student before you start the school.
Oh, wow. So they have to be able to see potential in you to like let you continue.
Yes.
Like someone has to give you a chance.
Yeah. And there's like I think there was like a lot of nepotism in that as well. So I didn't really have any connection into that.
Is that why you always say you're like a frustrated hairdresser?
Yes. I'm a repressed hairdresser.
Repressed hairdresser. That's what it is. I was like frustrated. That's not the word. Repressed. There you go. Yeah. That's awesome. So how do you kind of make those first steps happen? Like did you start getting into it more once you'd left high school, or?
Yeah, once I was done with high school, my sister and my brother-in-law were going to school here in Los Angeles, and they needed an au pair. And so Heba, little sister, came to babysit, and I met a girl here from Iceland that was actually going to Elegance International Makeup School. And, I got to know her a little bit, and she asked me to be a model for her for one of the tests there. So I did go in, and I was like really, again, fascinated by that. And I still didn't think I could paint or do this.
Yeah.
And so that's when I went back to Iceland, and that's kind of when I started doing the photo shoots with my friend who was doing the photography.
Yeah.
And so they was kind of just steering me. And at that point I was in college, and I basically finished everything in college except math. And I was thinking like photography, costume design. I didn't even really know how to get into costume design. So I was kind of like thinking, photography is like 4-year study. Costume design is probably like the same. Makeup is only a year. So I'll just go and try that. And if I don't like it, it will serve me to know makeup in whatever else I try to, if I want to later get into photography or into costume design. I was like, it would help both those professions, both those lines of work. So it would help me with both those if I know makeup. So I just felt like, it was short. It wasn't too expensive to study. I could live with my sister in LA. So I just felt it would help me in whatever else I would decide to do, because at that point, I was kind of thinking I would be something artistic.
Yeah. So it was never going to be a waste of time.
No.
And
then I started, and I just loved it.
So what made you study in Los Angeles? Were there no makeup schools in Iceland, or just because you'd had that taste of makeup school when you were visiting LA that first time that you thought that's where I want to study?
No, not at all. I wanted to go to London because I wanted to go into fashion. I never really thought about films because there's not a lot of films in Iceland. And I loved fashion and, all this new wave stuff and punk rock and, all that stuff. Like, I was just fascinated by it all. And so I want to go to London. But in the school system in Iceland, they will give you a loan, but they really control where you go.
Right.
So this school in LA was approved because other students had been there and they had gotten that school into the system. So I, called my sister and asked her if my room was still available and came to LA.
That's awesome. And how long was that course? Is it like a year or?
Yes, it's a year course. There's like 5 courses and they take a year. And that's what I was like fighting with the loan company about in Iceland, because it's twice a week for a year. And you can go in on other days and practice. But the school in England was for 6 months every day. So I was like, what's the difference?
Right.
But they saw a difference. So I came to LA, and to earn money, my brother-in-law had just started producing music videos, which were really new back then in 85 and 6. And I started doing craft service on music videos.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Heba at Crafty. I like it.
I have like crafty, and I didn't know what a peanut butter and jelly sandwich was. Like, people were like, "You have to have peanut butter and jelly." I was like, "What? You put peanut butter and jelly on a sandwich?"
Crazy.
Yeah.
So once you did your training, like while you were doing that training, were you trying to get makeup gigs as well?
Not really. I mean, no. I was just happy sitting on the cooler and learning English and film language and meeting people. And I met some really great friends.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I'm still in touch with.
That's awesome.
And so, they were like PAs and production managers and, and the Icelandic girl that was going to the makeup school, she hired me because back then you had to do like makeup, hair, and wardrobe. She would hire me, and I was mostly, at least in the beginning, doing wardrobe, and I was just like sending clothes forever till my hands were just raw and bleeding.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, oh no, I don't want to do this. I would rather do craft service.
It's one way to figure it out.
Make peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I slowly moved up and started assisting her a little bit. And then when I never even went in for the last test in school, because I was already working.
Right.
And I had booked my first job keying a little thing with the groundlings. And, I was like, do I want money or do I want to go and take a test? So I went for the money.
And for anyone that doesn't know, who are the groundlings?
Oh, the groundlings is like this comedy, I guess, school or seminars on La Brea in LA. And like SNL goes there a lot too.
Yeah. A lot of pretty great people have come out of there, right?
Yeah, like Kirsten Wiig and Melissa McCarthy. Basically all of the Bridesmaid girls, they met there.
Yeah. So that was one of your first kind of actual gigs.
Yes, I was it was like some teaching video that for schools or something. I don't know. I've obviously never seen that. And I was alone. I got like $100 a day and doing hair, makeup, wigs, beards. I remember I had to do like Einstein and, God knows what. And we did it, I don't know, for 3 or 4 days. And I think I did like 250 characters all by myself. Just like they would just come running in like, oh, now I need to be this and now I need to be that. And, the producer told me afterwards, he said, you're the only person who didn't complain on that job. And I was like, well, I didn't have time to complain about it. It was like I never left that room.
That's a good point. You're like, I was drowning. Yeah. I can't complain and drown at the same time.
Yeah.
What an experience. Like that's going to, you got to the end of that, and unlike making your fingers bleed with sewing, you got to the end of that and you must have thought, I'm going to keep going with this. This is awesome.
Yes. Oh my God. I loved it. Loved it.
And then, so how does it move from there? You keep doing that type of work, or did you end up getting into any fashion or editorial or?
Yeah. I mean, in LA, there has never been really any fashion. And if they came to LA, then they would bring people from New York.
Yeah.
So, I worked a lot for like Shape magazine, and I actually worked a lot for Vibe magazine. There was just like a few things here and there, but never really like any great editorial, Like I wanted to work for Italian Vogue or something. But I started doing like music videos. That's, I moved from the craft service cooler up into the makeup room. And I did that. First, I assisted a little bit on them, and then I started, keying them myself. And that was awesome. And then I got hired by Monty Montgomery. He was producer for David Lynch, and he hired me to do like a short film with David called The Cowboy and the Frenchman. And I did that. And then he asked me to do like a photo shoot with him with Julie Cruz for the album cover, which was really incredible. Like, it was just me, Julie, and David. And then I got pregnant with my first son, and in 88. Then shortly after he was born, David had done the Twin Peaks trailer, and he was moving Twin Peaks into series. And my husband at the time, he was producing it, and he was in a meeting, and David was telling him who they wanted to hire. And he was like, I want this girl Heba for makeup. She did a couple of jobs for us, and I want her to be the makeup department or makeup department head. And my husband at the time, he was like, well, I can tell you she's my wife, and she just had a baby, and she's not really working right now. But the people that he hired, Annette, she was makeup department head, lovely woman. And she brought me in just on busy days when it was like, maybe 2-3 days a week when they had the whole cast in. So I did that and got the taste of what an incredible director is.
Yeah, I mean, also working with him before he'd even done Twin Peaks, which is cool.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And then I just worked a little bit, here and there. I just kept kind of a couple of clients while my kids were little. And then like mid-90s, I started working again. And then I went entirely into commercials because I was going to try to do some more editorial because there was like a little bit more of editorial then, but you only got like $150 because it was mostly for credit. It wasn't that great, and it would take you sometimes 6 months to get paid. And I was like, I'm going to starve my children.
Yeah. Like I got mouths to feed, man.
Yeah. I would rather do commercials and get paid every 2 weeks. You know? So I went into commercials, and I did that for many, many years, which was fantastic. And it was like the perfect platform for me as then a single mom. And, you could, somewhat choose when you want to work and when not. So that suited me really, really well.
Short little stints of job and
yeah, I mean they weren't like as short back then. Like we would often do campaigns, and we were shooting like for 3 weeks.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and commercials were big back in those days. And it's actually funny, like now when I get booked on a commercial, it's still like the same rate, or they're trying to get me to work for less rate than I did in the 90s. I'm like, guys, it's like 25 years ago I made more money.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's insane. I mean, I was about to say I can't believe it, but of course I can. Don't be silly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I'm assuming, I mean, I would guess too, with commercials, you're doing all sorts of things. Like it's such a variety of work that you'd be doing.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. Like we were, doing anything from like Apple commercials, any kind of jean, Levi's, Wranglers, whatever, Super Bowl, beer commercials. I did a lot of car commercials, and it was fun. Like it was, and you kind of create a family in the commercial business like you do in the film business.
Yeah.
And you kind of, become the traveling circus with those people too. And, and another great thing about it is like all in LA.
Yeah.
That's when, like back in the 90s, I think is when they started moving all the movies into Canada and then later Albuquerque,
Right. So especially with having young kids as well, like that is perfect.
Yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. And just to go back to the music videos, do you remember one that stands out as just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm working on this? Whether it's because it was the most terrible song in the world or it was amazing.
Yeah, I know.
They can go either way.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking like, there was like a few that come to mind, but I was like, oh, this one is for this and not for that. I can tell you that I worked on a video with Berlin for Top Gun and Take My Breath Away.
Oh, awesome.
And Terry had her own makeup, but I did the boys in it. And it was supposed to be like one night shoot out in the Mojave. And back then, it's like you could never really book yourself like, on different jobs day after day because you would just shoot till it was over. I was sometimes working for like 27 hours.
Right.
And it was just one day shoot and they just did it till it was done.
Oh my God.
So we are shooting one night out in the desert and we get there and there's like a sandstorm.
Ugh.
And the wind was like 80 miles an hour. We were in the motorhome and it was like about to like take off with all of us in it. And so they told us all to put on like all the gear from the movie because they had all the leather jackets and the hats and everything from the film. So we put all this stuff on and we had to hold sandbags and walk to like this shelter.
Oh my God.
It was pretty crazy. Pretty crazy.
But obviously it calmed down and you're able to start shooting?
No, then they had to get like a big bus that would stay on the road and they came and got all of us and took us to some hotel and we stayed there and then we shot the next night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And we were all wearing the same clothes because nobody packed anything.
There's no Target out in the middle of nowhere to go get some fresh clothes.
Oh no, there was no Target back then. There was like maybe Kmart somewhere.
That's awesome. And I know just from knowing you and knowing that everybody wants to know about working with Quentin Tarantino, but I'm just looking at your resume right now and that department head job kind of sneaks up there pretty quickly. I mean, I know that you've in between what's on here, there's commercials, there's music videos, there's all this other work that you've done. But then it's just like Kill Bill Volume 1, hello. And it's just like, shit, what? Okay. How does that happen, Heba Thorisdottir?
That happened because I was friends with Julie Dreyfus, who was in Kill Bill and Inglourious Basterds and was a friend of Quentin's. And she lived and still lives in Japan, and she was in LA, and she would stay with me when she was here, and she would do some auditions and such. So and took some I think groundling classes or something. Okay. And anyway, so she went to visit on Jackie Brown. So I was her driver, and she lived with me. So off we went drove down to Hawthorne. And this is just after my second son was born. He was like 3 months old.
Yeah.
And I wasn't working at all. And we go down there, and it's Friday night. Everyone is having the time of their lives. And it just was just like kind of evoked the feelings of like a David Lynch set.
Mm-hmm.
And we stayed for a little bit, just watched a couple of takes, and then we were leaving, and we were saying goodbye to Quentin, and I said, I really love coming here and seeing your set, and I want to work on your next movie. I don't care if I'm sweeping your floors. And then we left, and I forgot all about it. And I mean, I knew him. I ran into him in restaurants and, met him a couple of times through Julie, and we had gone to dinner. So we became friendly. And then he called me and he told me that he was writing a new script, and he was thinking of Lucy Liu to be in it. And he said, Heba, I really love the look on Lucy when I ran into her at the Golden Globes earlier that year, like 6 months before.
Yeah.
And he said she came up to him and said, hi, I'm friends of Heba's. And so they had chatted, and I guess I was the first one to really expose Lucy's or show her freckles.
Right.
And I think he liked that she, that wasn't covered up. And I think on maybe on Ally McBeal and other projects she had, like, I think there was kind of a heavier foundation, and Quentin is not big on makeup at all.
Right.
So he liked kind of the freshness of it.
And you had done her makeup for that Golden Globes that he had.
Yeah.
Right,
so
right,
I told him, I said, you liked it because I did it. Ha ha. And he was like, yeah, I wasn't sure if you did her makeup for it or not, but she looked great. And I said, well, I just did like a magazine cover with her, and that's coming out like in a few days, so you can look at that and see what you think. And I think you should just call her and meet with her. She's awesome. So they connected, and she got hired for the movie, and I didn't. And then he said, I was going to Iceland for a vacation, and he said, I want you to read the script. I'll send it to you if you want to, he said, I only have like the first chapter. And I was like, okay, I didn't really know what that meant in a script. Like, that's the first chapter.
Yeah.
So I get like, I don't know, 40 pages or something. And I read it on a plane, and then I call him and I leave him a message, and I'm like, you bastard, you send me like this thing, and now what? Like, I need the end of the script. Like, you can't just have me read this and make me wait.
Yeah.
And so he actually FedExed a full script to Iceland, and that's still floating around somewhere because I never got it. So
shit.
I called him again when I got back, and he was like, I sent it. I was like, well, I never got it. So he sent me another one, and I read it, and I loved it. And, we went to dinner one night, we discussed it a little bit, and then I didn't hear anything for like a year. And then he calls me out of the blue, and he said, when you came to see Jackie Brown, or to the set of Jackie Brown, then you said that you wanted to work on my next movie, and you didn't care if you were sweeping my floors.
And he's like, so I'd like you to sweep the floors.
Yes, exactly. And so he was like, you actually don't have to sweep my floors, but I want you to be my makeup department head. And he said, because now Lucy is in the movie and she wants you to be her personal, so we're kind of fighting over you. And he said, just think about it. You would be with Lucy just for a couple of months on my movie in China, and then go on with Lucy to do Charlie's Angels. And I was just like, I don't even need to think about it. I want to do your movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even a question for me, So that's how it happened.
I love that he remembered that.
He remembers everything.
Right. Well, that explains
the good
it then.
and the bad.
Of course. I feel like I remember the bad far better than I remember the good.
Yeah, me too.
That's shocking. I wish it wasn't that way,
Yeah.
but So that relationship begins and it's just continued, which is amazing.
Yes, I mean, I was so fortunate that he wanted me to do this. At that point in my career, there had been a commercial strike. I can't remember if it was writers or who it was exactly no, it can't be writers because it's not really writers on commercials. So I don't know what it was, but commercials had been on strike. I had bought a house. I was really broke. I was like, commercials are not happening anymore. And an Icelandic friend of mine, I called her up one day and I said, I dropped my agent. And she was like, oh my God, Heba, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to work with Quentin Tarantino and Cate Blanchett. And my first movie was with Quentin and my second one was with Cate Blanchett.
Right. So that's not too bad.
No. So be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I always say that when people are just like, I want to work on location. I want to work all around the world. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's well, I mean, me personally, that was great for a little while, but then I was just like, oh my God, can I just get at least one job at home? That'd be great. I was like, be careful what you wish for. But did you guys shoot volume 1 and volume 2 back to back or like at the same time? Or was there a time in between those?
No, it definitely was one script.
Yeah.
And
the volume 1 and volume 2 were just one big script.
Yes, it's just one big script.
Wow.
Cool. It was like, I don't know, 3 chapters.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe 4. And so that it was just one script. And I mean, I had no idea it was 2 movies till, right before it was like announced that it was going to be released in 2 films.
Yeah. Right. Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. So for us, it was always just one movie.
Right. I love that it was 2. I mean, I just love those films. Full stop.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was stoked because, otherwise there would have been so much that we shot that would never have made it.
And it's talk about storytelling. Jesus.
Exactly. I was like, the story would never have been obviously told the same way. So, so I think it was brilliant to have it in 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what I think is so great about Kill Bill is that it got a lot of women, particularly, to love like kung fu movies and stuff. Like it got people into like a genre that we normally didn't watch.
Maybe that has something to do with it, because when I was a teenager, I had stepbrothers and they were big into kung fu movies and stuff, so I would always be watching them. So for me, it was just like, oh, here's a like film by a director that I already love and know, and it's all like has that Western spin on it, and it's like it's Uma Thurman and she's fucking kick-ass in it. So I think for me, it was just like, this is ticking so many boxes right now. It's amazing.
Yeah. I liked kung fu movies too. I grew up with someone, not like, I wasn't just like completely like immersed in that genre at all, but, and it was very limited what we could watch in Iceland. Like it was kind of like, as it came out, it was like in the theater and then it would come onto TV like years later.
Yeah.
So we had no revival cinema there. So the ones I did see, I really, really liked them. So for me, doing Kill Bill and designing that, it was like super exciting, and just having kind of these real life, comic that wasn't animated, it was really exciting.
And so with that being like, I mean, it would have been your first decent kind of full-on head of department job, right?
Absolutely.
So, and because there's so many characters and such a storyline and like the arcs and the journeys and the everything like that, how at that point were you feeling about being able to understand your breakdown and your continuity and all that kind of stuff? Like, had you figured all of that stuff out by that point, or was that still kind of murky water and you kind of were figuring it out as you went, or how do you remember?
When I went to Elegance makeup school, they taught us, like they gave us a little script and told us to read it, and we had to do a breakdown, and we got like, criticized or whatever, talked to about it. So they actually taught us that in school.
Right.
And back in like 90s, when we were doing commercials, like a lot of them were like kind of story oriented.
Right.
And obviously not as like a movie, but still like I had to make the actors look the same maybe for 3 weeks, which is sometimes a small film, or the same length of shooting. So, we had to do somewhat of it. But when I did Kill Bill, I didn't come in how most people come in, being in the crowd room and then, moving up into the trailer maybe. And, so I had never like assisted somebody, who was a department head.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of did it my own way and maybe ran it like a commercial. And I think in some ways I still do a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of definitely commercial taught me to kind of just roll with the punches and be prepared for anything, because directors, they were not only shooting just the commercial, but that a lot of those directors that I worked with, they became film directors. So they were always like shooting a little bit extra because they would actually make little, almost like short films out of what they shot for a commercial.
Right.
And that's how they build up the reels. So, so I just kind of took that into like an extended version, I think.
Yeah.
And also what helped me was all these characters in Kill Bill. And of course, Uma had her own people. And we started in China with the, there's like one sentence in the script that says, and that's like end of chapter 1. And it's like, and Uma kills the crazy 88. Well, we shot that sentence for 4 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big sequence.
Yeah.
The massive sequence.
So,
holy shit.
Yeah. So we started with that, and so there wasn't like tons of continuity. And I also, Howard Berger was there. Mm-hmm. He was running the effects, special effects makeup.
Right.
And Chris Nelson and Jake McKinnon. And they were all extremely helpful for me. And also Kira Panchenko, she's from New York. She started Uma, and so she was like in China with us, and then there was like another makeup artist came in there. I guess Kira had another job, so they were like kind of switching out. So I had a lot of great people who helped me along the way there.
That's awesome.
And the rest of my department was the Chinese makeup artist, and so I wasn't like great communication. They didn't really speak any English, and the translator, she didn't really speak great English, and definitely not like makeup language.
Right.
And so, that was very challenging, but also awesome. Like you just bond with these people, like all the Kill Bill people, we're still all friends. We're all still working with Quentin, and those people, have and always will be my family, just from that experience together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only is it the first big film that you've headed, but you're going to China.
Yeah. First time on location.
Yeah. So you're dealing with location, you're dealing with language barriers. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. But I love to know, and this is always difficult for people, but I'm going to ask it anyway because that's just how I roll. So what are your top 3 favorite projects that you've worked on, and why?
I mean, I think one of them would definitely be Kill Bill because of everything we talked about.
Yeah.
Already. Yeah. Like, first time on location, my first big movie. And then Life Aquatic was amazing. The location was incredible.
Oh, yeah. Where were you?
We were in Rome.
Oh, wow.
And I had like this beautiful apartment, and my kids got to come and visit and loved it. And, it was just a beautiful time there. I was working with Kate Blanchett, who I adore. It was like Sir George practicing his Bowie songs, playing the guitar in bass camp for hours. And it was just really, a beautiful time.
Yeah, I mean, what a film, what a cast, what a director. Holy shit.
Yeah. I mean, it was incredible. Incredible. And then I think, it's hard. Like Bridesmaids was like
Hilarious.
incredible. Yeah. And that was like so different from everything else I had done. But I think though, for the third one, I would have to say Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because when I was, like 4 years old, I just started reading, and I was reading about the murders. And
oh my God.
And, yeah, it started early.
Yeah.
We share a lot of the crime story podcasts.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
So I've always been obsessed with that, but I wasn't into like the whole Manson thing of it. I was just fascinated by her.
Yeah.
And I loved from when I was really scared to read the script. And then when I finally read it, I was so relieved what it was, because Quentin he had written the script about what I loved about her.
Right.
And, he wasn't focused, there was nothing obviously about her murder, but, he was just focused on her alive. And so, to get to do that was kind of like a dream movie. It was just kind of everything in my life came into fulfillment, I guess, Like, I loved the period. I loved her. I love LA. I love Quentin. And that was just a dream job. And I was just like, I could totally just retire after that movie.
Right.
Like, I didn't really feel like I was like, everything else was leading up to this. I don't have to do anything anymore.
Yeah. You're like, I've done it. It's
you
done.
know? Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then Babylon came along.
Yeah, there's always another one around the corner down the road somewhere.
Right.
Well, you hope so anyway, because you finish something like that and you feel like that. But there is, I know in my mind, I'm just like, oh God, I hope I feel this again at some point. I hope I get the opportunity to feel this again. I don't want this to be the top, even though it feels like the top of like just your experience and what it is and how it went and all of that kind of stuff. But, I think you've been lucky though, lady. There's plenty of highlights going on.
Oh, absolutely. I feel so lucky.
I will just say with the Bridesmaids, I was just clicked something in my brain. Because I would asked on social media the other day, like, what genre of film have you not done that you would really love to? And I was having trouble in my mind, thinking of what my answer would be. And then you just saying that, I'm like, I've actually, I did Next Goal Wins, but I haven't worked on like a comedy.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I would get fired because I would be too loud with laughing all the time or how that would go down. But that just made my brain think for a minute, like, oh fuck it. Yeah, I would totally get into a wicked comedy. That would be amazing.
Yeah. It was so funny on Bridesmaid, like all the girls were trying to make Rose crack during takes.
Right.
So, because she had a hard time controlling her laughter, and they would just keep going till she just had tears coming down her eyes.
And she's meant to be the uptight one.
Yeah. I know. It was amazing. It was so funny.
It's awesome. And what about a favorite kind of look or style or character that you've created? Where does your mind go when I say that?
I think my mind would go my mind goes to Margot Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have done like 3 very different films together.
Right.
Just her passion and her, her being able just to have us mold her into whatever
Yeah.
is really incredible to work with somebody like that.
Yeah.
And, I worked with her first in Once Upon a Time, and to get to do her as Sharon Tate, even though we were not doing complete likenesses, it was just incredible seeing her find it and come to life.
Yeah, it's still definitely a transformation though, because every time I look at her in that or images of her, I'm just like, oh yeah, her face, like she looks different. She doesn't look like the Margot
Right.
that we normally see and know. So it's like you guys definitely, even though she's still playing a pretty blonde woman, she doesn't, I'm not seeing Margot in there.
Yeah. No, it's great to hear. And, I think the contact lenses making her brown-eyed made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And the wig that Janine Thompson did was it changed her facial shape a little bit. And and we did pluck her eyebrows a little thinner, and when we were plucking them and as we were plucking them, I even plucked them a little bit more than is on camera, but I filled them in again because it was interesting, because the more we were trying to make her look like her by like tweezing the eyebrows or doing this and that, we were taking more away from her looking like her.
Right. That's interesting, isn't it? It can be such a fine line.
Yeah.
And then what was next? Suicide Squad, right?
Yes, and then we did Suicide Squad, and when I went into it, I didn't really realize like they were changing her whole look, and then I see her costume, and James Gunn was kind of like, yeah, we want to change her whole look, her hair and her makeup and everything. And that one was a hard one for me. I definitely had to kind of work through her look, and because the first film with her was really iconic, and her whole look, and it was kind of hard for me to imagine her as something else,
right? Because it's the same but different.
Yes, exactly. And usually, like when I see a costume that just kind of inspires me. And I go a lot with my looks by the clothes.
Yeah.
And even with that, it just didn't come to me. And I kept thinking like one eye like this and the other eye like that. And then I just kept testing like, just mostly on myself and just looking through like photos and colors, and the colors that we were doing with her hair, they were dyeing her hair, and it took a while for me to calm down, and it was also because it kind of had to read really well and really be her, but she also was only in that look for like, I don't know, 20 minutes or half an hour of the film.
Right.
Not even. I mean, she was really just clean for like 10 minutes, And then, there was explosions, and she's like black with soot. And it also had to, because I had to come up with something that I could use as well that would hold up through weeks in water and rain, where the rain was like a car wash. Like she walked through it, and, it had to be on her when she came out on the other side. And so that was like a really tough one for me. And also just to come up with something that it hadn't been before, And it wasn't until like I just kind of stopped looking at everything and just thinking of her psychologically, which is usually how I approach character, but for some reason, just because she had been done before, that I kept going into that and forgetting who she was.
Kind of skipping that bit.
Yeah. So when I just kind of started realizing like she's just a badass, and I often go into music for characters, and like when I did Captain Marvel, I did a playlist for her, that I was imagining her listening to, and I got inspired to do her makeup by that. And so when I was doing Harley Quinn, I was just like, she's like the badass in the group. And that's when I came up with like Alice Cooper.
Right.
and then that was just it. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that works. That's who she is.
That's awesome. I love that. And then your last one with her was for Babylon.
Yeah, Babylon, Jaime Leigh.
With me, Jaime Leigh.
Yeah, that one was almost easy. It was the script and Damien's vision and his vision books and pictures. I mean, it wasn't easy, but it was like between you, me, and Mary, it was like kind of a seamless dance, I think.
Yeah. And you didn't get you didn't get put through the ringer as much as Mary and I did.
No.
It was all discussions about here, costume.
Yeah.
So you were like, phew.
Yeah,
you had your time with other characters.
For sure.
Swings and roundabouts. But did you find with that, and I don't know if I ever I know that we talked about it a lot, but I don't know if I touched base afterwards, but like how was it for you not doing traditional as such, what we would normally think of as 20s makeup on her and keeping her thicker brows and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'm used to it a little bit from Quentin because he has his own world. So even, I think the only film we have done kind of strictly period with Quentin, it was Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah.
But other than that, he likes what he likes and how he remembers. So I'm used to being a little looser and understanding like his world. So for me, it wasn't that hard to do to be kind of out of that.
Yeah.
And also just as when we were doing the research and when we came across what was the book called? The mugshots.
Oh, Least Wanted.
Yeah, when we came across that and we started seeing too, like, not everyone had tweezers or shaver to shave their eyebrows, and not everybody had makeup, because we always look at like photographs from the time or painting, and then that's mostly rich people.
Yeah.
And and it's like when I've been doing research like for Django and stuff, like I started coming across photos where some of the African American people, they were wearing like the same clothing because they didn't own like dresses and stuff. So the photographers had the clothes. So a lot of the photographs you're looking at is not even the people's clothes that you're looking at.
Right.
So,
when they go in for like portrait photography and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And which mostly are photos like that you can research from certain times.
Yeah.
So I think when we started looking at the mugshots and that also put me at ease. I was like, they don't all have that makeup.
Yeah, I remember that making me feel so much better. And also being like way more excited by those images and inspired by them. Like, because Damien was really pushing us to dig, to find people and to find images that were not what everybody,
the traditional, what you expect,
what everyone expects. And the more I found those, the more I was just like, fuck, these are some awesome people. Like, these character, they just look incredible. And they'd have like the weirdest hairstyles, or almost kind of, it's very interesting theatrical makeup. Sometimes it would just be like, oh, far out. Okay. Yeah, that's not what you normally think it looks like. I remember when
you were like pushing back on Damien with something, and you were like, they didn't have like long hair like this, and he sent you photos of people with like,
I think
hair
that was
down to their ankles.
I think that was a process. It was just like there was that, and then I snapped out of that very quickly because I just then went, okay, hang on a minute, let me start looking for actually long hair women. But it was the male one that I never gave up on, like fighting back with him, because he was just like, he had, I think it was very early on, he had cast a guy who had hair down just past his shoulders. And I was just like, okay, well, we're going to need to cut his hair. And the guy was just like, I'm not cutting my hair. And Damien was just like, well, I'm not recasting. And I'm like, well, can I wig him? And he's like, I don't know about that. And I was just like, I'm sorry, this guy's a camera guy in the like late 20s.
Oh, yeah.
And you want him to have long hair? I was just like, come on, Damien, really? And he was so good. He came back with a image of what looked like, to me, a actor on a set dressed like he was in a biblical movie. So he had he had like a long wig on and a beard. And he was like, see, this is from the 20s. This existed. And I was just like, but that's a character in a movie. And yeah, I was very naughty with that whole situation though, Heba. I think you remember that. I ended up wigging the guy and not even talking to Damien about it. And so now in the movie he has short hair. So it was all fine and worked out. But it was, as soon as I started looking for the women with long hair, it was just like, yes, there were loads of women with crazy long hair that they would braid and put up into styles to cheat, to look like they were in bobs. So it's just like, don't anybody come at me about no long hair in the 20s. I'll bring out my research.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like I understand how, just reading Damien's script was amazing, and just how it's such a timeless story that I understand how he asked us not to be. He was very specific. Like, if the clothes are 20s, I don't want the hair and makeup to be 20s.
Yeah.
If the makeup and hair is 20s, then I don't want the clothing to be. He was like, you guys have to constantly dance around each other. And we did the whole time.
Yeah. It was that was a massive learning curve for me. Half of me was really into it and the other half was just like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And by the time we got to the end, I had completely, that 50-50 feeling had shifted greatly towards the other end of going, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I learned a lot about just trusting my director and just going with the flow, because it's just like, nah.
I know. Yeah. And it's like, working with such a visual director like Damien, like Quentin and Wes Anderson, you just know that they know what they're doing, and they have already like edited the movie in their heads. Like, all these directors are huge on their music, so they have all like gotten the music before they're shooting. And so that means also like they've edited the movie. So it's like when Quentin tells me like some continuity doesn't matter, I know it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, I'll break the continuity for him. Anytime. If he is like, and I remember on Django in the scene at Calvin Candy's house, Calvin Candy's house, then Leo had, like, when he's having a whole speech when he broke the glass and all that, and he smeared blood on Carrie, there was just, in the beginning, it was just like a little blood, and I took photos, and I'm like, doing it in continuity, and Quentin is like, Heba, there was more blood. And I was like, not even thinking. I was like, no, it wasn't. Like, look at the photo. And he was like, there was more blood. I was like, oh yeah, there was a lot more blood. And we just like doused her in blood,
You're like, where was it again?
Yeah.
Over here? Okay.
Yeah. So, it's like, you just trust them. You're just, they know
Yeah.
what they're going to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now at the stage in your career that you're at, and people who are either at the beginning of theirs or thinking of getting into this line of work, do you have any advice for them?
I get a lot of like emails and, messages and asked about that. My advice is always to go to like a makeup or hair school, maybe rather than a cosmetology school.
Right.
To learn like film makeup, because you will learn more about lighting and, and just other little things that you won't necessarily know from a cosmetology school.
Yeah.
And so I think that's always like a good start. And then you also have a chance to feel whether you like to go, more into beauty or effects or both, or, if you want to be in a lab or on set or, all that stuff. And then I think I've always told everybody to find, as if you're in LA, like go to AFI or USC or UCLA or even Chapman, and try to work with the graduate students and on their films. They're always looking for makeup people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good experience. And most of these people, they work in the business in some capacity. And a lot of the directors that we are working with today, they came from those schools. And so I think that's always a good connection. And, often you travel together. So you will kind of move out together, or a couple of years later, if they get a film and they're like, oh, that girl, that did my graduation movie, I wonder what she's doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's always a great experience and good thing to meet people. Yeah. So I think those, kind of two things are a pretty kind of solid ground to start on.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're putting a team together, what are you generally looking for?
What do I look for? Besides them being fun and somebody I want to be locked up with and for 5 months in a small trailer.
Yeah. So don't be a dickhead.
Yeah. I try to find somebody who has strength in things that I am not, because I think you're only as strong as your weakest link, So I try to have people in my department for everybody and everything that can be thrown in our court,
Yeah, I think that's
because we know we constantly get those things.
Yeah. And having said, don't be a dickhead. I feel like having worked with you, you're so good with people. And I just wanted to know how you kind of handle conflict or difficult working relationships with others that maybe are not so fluid or easy to collaborate with. How do you approach that kind of thing?
I just don't work with those difficult people.
That doesn't always happen. Come on. You're hilarious. You're like, I just don't. How does that sound?
I just don't.
I have them burnt at the stake.
Yes, exactly. Thrown into the river. That's what they did in Iceland. They would throw you into like this lake with a rock tied around your neck.
What, when you were a teenager?
Oh yeah. That's how I had to move over here.
Oh my God.
No, I think I try to understand where they are coming from, because I think it helps me if I know kind of their side of the story. I think that helps me tolerate it better, or not to react to what they're doing.
Yeah, how to navigate it all a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. But I think I've heard about some crazies in our business, but I haven't really encountered a lot of it.
That's good.
Thankfully.
Yeah. And being the business that it is, with the hours that we work, as you were just mentioning about being locked up with people in a trailer for however long, has there ever been a point in your career where you've kind of felt burnt out? Have you ever got to that point?
Yeah, no.
Okay, so how do you manage it? Like how do you find, I guess, the passion for your work again?
Well, if anyone has any ideas for me, if you're listening, you can shoot me an DM.
Okay. Heba needs some help right now.
I need help.
Lady, that's not good. Do I need to? My idea of help is just kicking you up the ass. So I don't think that's gonna work.
Go for boba.
Yeah, we'll fill you up with boba. We'll have a laugh, and it'll be all great.
Yeah. I don't know. For the last, couple of years, I've just felt a little discouraged in the business. And I just feel that, I feel what everybody is feeling, that we are just kind of don't matter. And I just don't feel like everything we're doing and how we're putting practically our lives on the line, that we're being appreciated for it,
Right. So it's that shift in the industry.
Yes. And it just has made me think of, because we've all made huge sacrifices for, for us being able to do what we love to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I've just felt like this shift in the last few years. So it's just kind of made me think oh, what else do I want to do?
Right.
And,
that's tricky because it's so out of your hands. I mean,
yeah.
So that's hard. When you said the last couple of years, I thought you were going to say since I started working with you, Jaime Leigh.
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, it's me.
I was like, since I met you.
She's like, I can't do this anymore.
I'm really rethinking what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, my whole life choices. What am I doing?
Yeah. No, it's actually quite the contrary, because it's people like you that keep me in the business, that, that I love it. I love my friends in the business. I love the actors I worked with. And luckily, for I did a couple of jobs that practically took almost all of last year with Natalie Portman.
Mm-hmm.
And she was so lovely to work with. This year, I worked with Paul Rudd for a good part of the year.
Yeah, I'm just gonna embarrass you, Heba, and just be like, so anyone who wonders how Paul Rudd hasn't aged, it's Heba Thorisdottir. That's Paul's secret weapon. I always joke with you about that, but I'm going to guess that it's semi-true.
I know. It's my magic that's making him into Benjamin Button.
Yeah. Awesome. But just being able to work with those guys for the last couple of years has been really helpful.
Yes. What I've really kind of been lucky in my career is that I started in music videos and I went into commercials, and I did strictly commercial for 10 years. And then I would start doing I would do one movie, and then I would be doing commercial for the rest of the year because I didn't want to be too much on location while my kids were still in school. And so I always had kind of if I was bored with movies, I would do commercials for a little bit. Or if I want to stay in town, I'm just going to do commercials. And so I've been lucky not be I've never put all my eggs in one basket that way.
Yeah.
And I've also been able to go a little bit between department heading, which I do love, because then I have I can, work with a hairdresser that I love, and I can have my crew with me. And, we all kind of, it's this huge creative energy together, which I love more than anything in what I do. And, and then I can also, if I get a little tired of that, and then I went into being a personal. So I've been always able to dance around with that a little bit, which has been fantastic, because I've never kind of before reached that plateau where I'm just so burned out, but I have to keep working and I hate it. I don't have that because I've always been able to change the medium or the circumstances a little bit.
Yeah.
So in the last couple of years, I've been choosing to be a personal more, and just I don't know, it's just different.
Well, it sounds like it is true that variety is the spice of life, lady.
Yes, for sure.
Variety is the spice of film life, set life.
Yes. Absolutely, 100%.
I love that. Now, think back on all the films that you have ever watched, and which is insane. But is there something that jumps out to you? You remember watching and just being blown away by the hair and makeup?
I'm not sure if it was particularly hair and makeup.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was like really young, I loved the Hollywood movies, and my sister told me, like, I always stayed up and I was just fascinated, and especially with Marilyn Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always just loved movies, you know, but I vividly remember a few films. There was like the movie Diva, which was a French film, and it wasn't necessarily hair and makeup in it. It was more the cinematography.
Yeah.
And that just blew my mind. I was just like, this looks cool.
Yeah.
And there was also another film around the same time it was by a Russian director called Liquid Sky.
Mm.
I saw it actually recently at a screening for the first time on a big screen.
Oh, wow. That's
and
cool.
with a Q&A with the director and stuff, and it was really fun.
Mm.
And that was, in that, it was kind of new wavy looking, and there was like a girl like me in it with like short bleach blonde hair. And, you know, and I was just like, those were like modern films that I related to.
Yeah.
More than like me always watching like spaghetti westerns and, you know, and old musicals and, you know, 40s films.
Yeah.
And then was also Down by Law by Jim Jarmusch.
Yeah.
That I first started like just, you know, just, and I think throughout all these, it's like the cinematography that kind of got me in more than hair and makeup.
Yeah. Just visually inspiring all around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like what we do, as you know, at least for makeup, I always laugh because it's the director that hires me and I interview with them, and, you know, you go through all these things and then I almost never talk to them again. I'm just talking to the DP,
Right.
you know, because that's everything. They can just make and break what we do, you know, with their lighting.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
you know, so I feel like in doing makeup, I am working with the DP, I'm working with the director, obviously working with the actors, costume designer. It has to fit into the set, you know. So it's like, I feel like we're in all these departments that is really creative.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if I set you up at your station and I took something away from you, what would you freak out about?
Jaime Leigh.
What one tool or product would you not want to be without, Heba?
I have quite a few essentials, Jaime Leigh, as you know.
Well, which one's just going to cause you
I
to
mean,
hate me for life if I run out the trailer going, hee hee, see ya?
I think one thing that I think maybe the Ben Nye color wheel. That's something like I don't always use it, but I kind of always have had it in my kit.
Yeah.
Because that's just one thing like in my set bag that I can do a million things with it.
Right.
If you're in a bind, you know, so I always just have it in my set bag. And sometimes the new wheel goes from movie to movie with me without ever being opened. But then there's like that one time they ask for something and you're like, okay, yeah, I got it. You know?
So it's like your safety blanket that you have in your
It's my safety blanket.
That's awesome.
But then, you know, I would also be really mad if you took like my incense and candles away, you know? And my sprays.
Yeah. Your yummy smelling sprays. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'd be mad if I took those away too, so I won't do that. It's okay. And what one person would you like to hear on the podcast?
I think either Kim Sant'Antonio would be great.
Mm-hmm. And you've worked with her a couple of times in the last year or so, looking after
Yes, we
Natalie.
worked together on May, December. That just coming out, and Lady in the Lake, which is the Apple series, and also Kira Panchenko in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Have you talked to Kira?
No.
She's amazing. She has been department head and personal. Like she and Kim actually do Nicole Kidman together sometimes.
Nice.
And I met Kira on Kill Bill. She was doing Uma Thurman.
Mm-hmm.
And she's super talented, and I've always looked up to her. And, she's the one I call with my questions, her and Nikki Letterman. But I think you talked to Nikki already.
I haven't.
Oh, you haven't?
Mm-mm.
Well, I got 3 names for you.
Well, look at you. All right.
Yeah.
I love it. And before we wrap, are you ready for a quick fire round of questions in 30 seconds?
Yeah.
He was like, you didn't tell me about this.
I know, you did not.
I never do. Okay. Are you ready?
I think so. As ready as I can be for a surprise like that.
It's okay, lady. I'll be gentle. It's all right.
You're scaring me.
Okay. Do you love doing your own makeup? Yes or no?
No.
Do you believe man landed on the moon?
Oh, yeah.
Given the chance, would you go to the moon?
No.
Would you rather work days, splits, or nights?
Splits.
Do you watch more TV or movies?
Movies.
What's your favourite colour?
Blue.
Blue. Lady, that's awesome. Well done. Thank you so much for joining me. And I have just learned so much about you that I never knew.
Oh, wow. I need to interview you one day.
Dream on, lady.
Learn all those things.
But yeah, thank you so much.
No, it was fun. Thanks for having me. I've told you, like, I wasn't listening to your podcast because I felt like then maybe I was at work.
Yeah.
And then, it was still like always downloading onto my podcast. And I do listen to a lot of crime podcasts, as you know, and nutritional podcasts. And then yours popped up one day, and it was Lois Burwell. And I'm obsessed. I just can't wait to be in a car and listen to your podcast.
Yay. Winning.
Yeah, you are. And I hope maybe I've inspired somebody or taught somebody one little thing, then it's worth it, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I would bet money on it. That's how confident I am.
Human, kind, be both. Humankind Glow is a growing community redefining beauty, where the true measure of beauty is the love and kindness we share with ourselves and others, with the mission to redefine beauty by inspiring confidence and kindness, disrupting unrealistic beauty standards. Their exceptional products aren't just about looking great. They're a catalyst for positive change. Created by New Zealand-born, Hawaiian-based makeup artist Natalie Bruce, Humankind Glow offers a variety of beauty products and has more in development arriving to the website soon. Stock your professional and personal kits today with a beauty brand you can feel good about, with a portion of profits going towards impactful causes, embodying their commitment to kindness in both beauty and business. Your purchase helps redefine the standard, proving that together we can make a significant difference. Join Humankind Glow in creating a world where true beauty is a beacon of peace and kindness. To receive your Last Looks Crew 10% discount, go to humankindglow.com/lastlooks or hit the link in the show notes of this episode. Individually, we are one drop. Together, we are an ocean.
Okay, Last Looks crew, thanks for listening. And remember, if you love it, share it. A quick scroll down and you'll find our show notes. Or maybe you'd like to give your support and leave a 5-star review. Go on, I know you want to. Search the Last Looks podcast on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, whichever one tickles your fancy. And cheers to Liliana Rose for her fabulous voice acting talents. Okay, Last Looks crew, that's a wrap for me. I don't need to be told twice to get out of here. So bye. I'll catch you on the flip side.
That's a wrap, people.